a little rushed. So thank you guys for joining me. I'm gonna kind of spin off of what we talked about earlier this week. We were talking about how we can master our energy and how yoga is about mastering not only the energy that we're experiencing, but sorry, I got the hiccups too, but managing our emotions, learning how to gain more access and control over the mind, even though that's the hardest thing to control sometimes, as well as our senses. So when we're trying to master ourselves and master our energy, one of the ways that we can notice if we're growing, if we're evolving, if we're learning life lessons, and just plain old maturity, is if we're showing up in the same situations or the same circumstances or the same conversations that may trigger us somehow, if we notice a difference in our response. For instance, I'll give you a silly example, but when I was younger and had literally left college to become a flight attendant, I wasn't even living with my parents anymore. In fact, for the first year, I was living up in Minneapolis. And anyway, I kind of bounced around the country a little bit. But I eventually started commuting to work. And so not only would I have to drive to the local airport, then I would fly from that airport to wherever I was based. And I always allowed myself enough time, 2 or 3 flights to get to work. And so that always worked out in my favor. But when it was time to come home after a trip, and it could have been a 4, 5, 6, 7 day trip of being gone, I would get so stressed out and emotional if I couldn't get a flight home. If the flight had been canceled or if it was oversold or whatever, and then I got stuck wherever I was based. And I would call my parents and cry to them, like, I can't get home. And I don't know why I would do that, but they couldn't do anything to help me. It was out of their control, and I wasn't even going home to them. And I got over that. It took me probably about a year to finally get over that obstacle. But we find ourselves as humans showing up in the same situations or circumstances that somehow create stress for us. And then we tend to react. We tend to react emotionally. We tend to react in ways that's really not helpful to us or anyone else. And it's not really resolving the problem or issue that we're facing. And so even though that's a silly example, I'm sure you could think of many examples in your own life where maybe you have noticed all of a sudden one day, it's like your awareness gets expanded and it's like, okay, I don't have to react that way anymore. I don't have to respond with that emotion anymore. And it's not going to get me anywhere anyway. And it's about deciding in that moment, I'm going to try a different route. I'm going to make a different choice and then see what happens. So when we're sitting in our postures today, that's one of the beautiful lessons of yin. We get in a pose, we hold it for a period of time, and we're supposed to be sitting with it and really being with it and allowing it, even though there's some discomfort that comes up, even though the sensation may really spike. Can we be with it without reacting? Yes, sometimes we need to respond. If it crosses the threshold of pain or strain, if it blocks or holds your breath, then absolutely back out of the pose. But otherwise, just try to steep in it and let it teach you how to sit and not react. All right, so we'll get into the practice. We will start. I just put a blanket over my mat because we're going to be doing some prone positions in the beginning. You don't have to do that. And I'm not planning on using any props other than one block at the end. So a blanket and a block is probably all you're going to need. Our first position that we're going to get right into is the one where we're on the front side of the body and the left knee is going to slide up in line with the hip. Instead of the foot being crossed over to your mat, send the foot off to the flooring in your room. Separate your arms wide and turn to rest on your right cheek. And then go ahead and immediately close the eyes. Check in with your body. Make sure the left knee doesn't need any additional support. Make sure your shoulders are comfortable enough to stay in the shape. And if not, create another. This is one of the yin poses that's not necessarily terribly intense, but it is still providing an opening for the hips and the shoulders. There's 3 meridians or energetic pathways that we're opening up with the arms. And they are the heart, the lung, and the pericardial meridians. With the opening of the inner thigh and hip, it responds to 3 different meridians through the legs: the kidney, spleen, and liver meridians. The nice thing about yin postures is we can get more passive. We can just dwell here and know that it's expanding the connective tissues where energy travels. It's like getting the kink out of a water hose. Establish more presence by using your breath. And allowing the breath to anchor you into your body and to maintain your presence in the now. We're going to be doing a full yin practice today since we're approaching the new moon. This new moon is in Cancer. And I believe it's happening tomorrow. New moon is a good time to promote more grounding. It's also a good time to go within. We're going to start to switch off to the other side. So if you extend your left leg back, then turn your face over to the left cheek, sliding your right knee up and turning to the inside of the right foot. And then settle back in. Closing the eyes to filter out any distractions and to filter out any outer influences. I was listening to a podcast regarding the new energies coming in. We were discussing how May was about mental health, how June was emotional, and how July is supposed to be kind of a breath of fresh air. The energy is being compared to being like a river that's getting cleaned out. Anything that was creating sludge or mud, any of the inner stirrings that's been coming up to the surface are now being released. Let go of any tension or holding in the body. As if you were like driftwood. Floating downstream with the river. We're going to start to maneuver to our second pose, which is going to be broken wing. So extend your left arm out shoulder height, palm down turned. Slide your right hand closer to your chest. Roll towards your left side. Plug the left knee up underneath your right. And your first option is to stay here, pressing lightly away from your right hand so that you're stretching the front of the left shoulder and where it attaches to your torso. Your second option would be to open up the clam, meaning elevating the right knee and separating it from the left. These are the same meridians that we targeted in the previous pose. I want you to consider this past year, how we have been expending a lot of energy, trying to reconfigure certain things in our life. And there's been many points where we were scrambling to discover new ways. So if May and June brought feelings of exhaustion and tiredom, the good news is this energy pouring in is going to help us to recollect the energy that was constantly being poured out. So during your practice today and during this new moon energy over the weekend, think about how you can collect and bring more energy to you. And it may show up in unexpected ways. In fact, this new moon in Cancer is supposed to be offering us a gift. Now, you don't have to continue to push away from your right hand. Do less if it gets to be too much. You can also close the clam if it starts to feel too much. Go ahead and straighten out your legs. Gently turn back towards your face, towards that prone position. Slide your right arm out shoulder height. Slide your left hand towards you. And just roll towards your right side, bending the knees, stacking them together. And then, of course, determine how much or little do you want to roll into the right shoulder, and how much or how little do you want to separate the knees. There's other variations of this pose that you're welcome to take if you have a different preference. If you're holding tension in your jaw, you can try to create a fake yawn, or part the lips, or take a cleansing breath. And usually that will help. So just notice when you're hanging out in the pose, if it's not crossing that threshold of pain or strain where you need to come out, how when you're sitting with it, being with it, breathing into it, how it helps to train us and teach us to allow, to accept. It's in that space that we're holding that we can be more calm and reflective. And that calm reflection will help to keep ourselves composed to respond versus emotionally react. So it's not just about stretching the shoulder. There's something more we're learning here. We're going to close the clamp. We're going to slide the feet back, and we're going to roll back to the belly. We're going to prop onto the forearms, and the right forearm is going to cross in front of the left. So it's not Sphinx. The arms are crossed right in front of the chest. And then we're going to slide the hands through. And this is shoelace arms. They're actually creating a crisscross. And that crisscross is between your chin and your chest, kind of underneath your collarbones. And then you bow your head. Now, I've already noticed my feet are too close together, and I'm feeling kind of a crunch in the low back. So to alleviate that, if you're experiencing it, just separate your feet, give a little wiggle to the hips, and that will relax your low back. Now, it's not always comfortable for the chin to dig into the arm, but you'll get used to it. Close the eyes. Lots of times when we experience stress, we feel like we're all entangled in it. We're tied up, which makes us react. Similar to this pose, you may feel a little tied up here, and you may want to run from it, but try to stay and remain calm and patient. Patiently watching and witnessing, listening and hearing what else may come up. So this new moon that we're experiencing, I was listening to a podcast about it yesterday, and she was saying, you know, one thing that we can observe is in our moments of stillness and quietude, what's happening with the undercurrents. For instance, what's going on in the mind that we're not actually speaking out loud? What's happening with the undercurrents of our emotions? Where is it stemming from? Does it hold importance? Or is it something we need to let go of? The new moon is asking us to stretch into a different part of ourselves. Something that may have been unseen or unheard. So I'm going to give you some quiet time now to do that. Inhale, we're going to lift the face, glide the arms back in, and then we're going to cross the arms the other way. Slide the hands back under and through, and rebound the head. You may have more stiffness on one side versus the other. You might notice that it's stretching more of the outer shoulders and arms. So the meridians here are the large intestine meridian, small intestine meridian, and triple heater. Close your eyes, go back into the undercurrents of thoughts, undercurrents of emotion. So drop in. Inhale, let's lift the face. Walk the forearms in. This time you're creating the Sphinx arms. And I'm going to give you a choice here. You can stay here with Sphinx arms. If you need it to be more active, the legs shoot more together and you pop up your heart center more. The other option would be to separate your hands a little wider than shoulder width apart, slightly turning them away from each other and propping yourself up. This is called seal. So seal or Sphinx. This gives some healthy compression for the low back. Brings the prana more into the heart. Helps us gain flexibility in our spine. If you're still lifted in seal, spill down to your forearms. And then from Sphinx, let's collapse down to the third eye. Hands slide back underneath the chest. Inhale, push up to table. And then exhale, press back into extended child's pose. Hips are soaring back towards your heels. Inhale, rock up hands and knees. And then exhale to downward facing dog. You're hugging the belly in. Flushing out the brain with this inversion. Take one more breath. And exhale, spill down to your knees. All right, we're going to switch this up. We're going to take the legs out in front of us. And then the right leg is going to cross over the left knee. So we're going into half shoelace with the legs. The arms are going to lift us up to create more space in between each vertebra. And then on the exhale, we're going to hold, or hinge rather, forward, and then hold the position. If you have issues with the disc in your back, I would suggest a flexed foot, a straight back. If you have a healthy back, there's no worries on softening the ankle and just rounding down. So even though we get a stretch for the hamstrings, this is really about creating more expansion in the connective tissues that overlays and overwraps the muscle and mixes in with it. Calmly and patiently wait and watch as any tension unravels, as your flexibility unfolds. Just think of that muddy river becoming clearer and clearer, cleaner and cleaner. Generally speaking, when you're doing yin poses, you can hold for as little as 1 minute, for as long as 5. Dependent on your body, dependent on the day, dependent on the experience. You may discover some days you can hold and steep in it for a long period. And there's other days where you just want to run out of it. Try to remain in it, sit with it, be with it. Three more breaths. And then we'll slowly back out. All right, we're going for full shoelace. So you basically just slide your left foot in. And then if you lift up energetically, like right now, I'm really feeling it already. And if that's the case for you, you don't have to go any farther. But if you want to go deeper, of course, just kind of lean over your lap. I'm going to stay upright a minute. Close your eyes to tune to your own body, to feel and listen to that sensation. And let your body prompt you to go deeper or to exit out. Inhale, let's back away cautiously. Lean back into your hands, extend your legs out in front of you. Shake them out if you need to. We'll do half shoelace with the left leg over the right. We'll fly the arms up first, and then exhale, enter in next. And then you know your body better than anyone, approaching it actively or passively. Inhale, we'll slowly start to back away. We'll do double shoelace, sliding the right foot in. And again, just sit for a moment, but sit taller. Because when you sit taller, it'll affect the hips. And like on this side, I don't feel anything, but you may. So this may be where you want to stay. But if you want more sensation, go ahead and fold forward. A nice reminder is we don't always want to go to 100% of our edge of flexibility. We don't want to take it to the deepest level, especially right at first. Eventually, you can surrender into that space. On your next inhale, let's gently start to back our way out. And for now, we're just going to bend, or not bend the knees, uncross the legs, straighten them out, come into hammock. I like to flip-flop the feet in and out. And I also like to balance the knees here. And then we'll bend the knees after that. And we'll do a twist from side to side. And this one, we're just flowing back and forth. And then we come back to center. This is where we're going to use a block. Coming down to our backs. Pressing into the feet. Getting the buttocks off the floor so the block can go under the sacrum. And just be here in supported bridge. Now, I know some of you like waterfall. You're welcome to do waterfall. What we're really using this inversion for is everything that we were just kind of awakening and opening through the legs, through the hips, through the shoulders and chest. We're now inverting ourselves so that gravity is helping to draw this energy and blood flow into those higher tiers. The heart, the place of integration, the throat, the place of purification, the third eye, the place of enlightenment, and the crown, which is the place of union. Let's go ahead and tuck the tailbone, elevate the hips to remove that block. Roll back down to the ground and go ahead and counter this by hugging the knees into your belly. And then we'll prepare for Shavasana. So if you'd like the corpse pose, your feet will separate wider than hip distance. Your arms will be a degree away from your body, from your waist. With your eyes gently closed. And if you want to use other props, you're welcome to bring them in to make it restorative. Just to recap everything, our theme today was about holding some space for ourselves when we get triggered or stressed, so that we're not just reacting, but sitting with it, being with it, so that we can respond in a mature way. And sometimes there's a learning curve to different stressors, but we eventually discover that in order to change the results, we need to change our response. So, in this stillness, just hold space for yourself. Be compassionate with yourself because life isn't easy. Remain interested in what lies below the surface, even with those undercurrents. When you're ready, just walk the feet back your way. Maybe just rock the knee side to side like we did earlier. Eventually turning completely to one. Rising up to take a seat. Resting. The eyes closed, but the palms open on the lap. And joining your hands together to prayer. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.